Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Cameraman Show. My name is Manav.
And I'm Kartik.
And in this podcast, we talk all things weddings, cameras, and business. And today, we have another interesting topic.
It's always interesting.
In your words.
What do you mean? It's always interesting, and you are using my words. I don't know how to introduce any episode non-interestingly.
Other than that, yeah.
I feel like we should mix that up.
We need to come up with a few different variations of this. Yeah.
But today's topics, it is interesting because we're going to talk about how to manage your life around wedding photography in two perspectives. Perspective one, if you're a wedding photographer learning how to balance your life around wedding photography, or if you're a couple getting married and you're planning your life around you getting married and your wedding is coming up.
And it is really stressful, especially the last few months of your wedding planning.
For sure.
So I think we're just going to give a few tips to the couples.
We thought about this as a creative segment because we realized also, Manav and I are at two different life stages, me being a single person and Manav being a married person. So we have two perspectives on how we balance our lives around hectic wedding photography, wedding season, back-to-back periods, whilst maintaining somewhat sanity and having a lifestyle. And we thought, you know what, we've come across couples who are very stressed out within this space that we can maybe give a few tips and tricks to. So if you are getting married, then, smash that like button, comment as well. Let us know your favorite parts. But hopefully you guys take some notes from this and walk away going, okay, cool. I can either take a chill pill or there are now smarter ways of doing, wedding planning. So let's just dive straight in and get into the first tip about...
Actually, we want to start talking from the couple's perspective first.
Yeah, let's talk from the couple's perspective.
So if you're a couple planning your wedding...
Pay attention.
Yeah, so basically, if you're a couple planning your wedding, what can you do to lower your stress levels, have a better balance in life while you're doing your wedding planning?
Look, first thing that comes straight to mind is just learn to make time for your partner that's not related to wedding photography or videography or planning your wedding rather. I think it's fun and all to go and be like, oh babe, let's go have date night, but keep it to date night.
But then you're literally just talking about the wedding the whole date
what's
night.
The point of that, right? You should do it in a way where you spend time with each other, but you're not there to talk about the wedding.
Mind you, have your time planning your wedding, but then have your time separate to that, which has got nothing to do with planning your wedding.
Yeah, so I think just be careful around, identifying that, hey, this is our us time, and as opposed to this is our wedding planning time. So, if you're getting married, I think the biggest thing that you should probably start thinking about is if you're planning your wedding 6 months out from your wedding date, there's already a problem there. So being proactive in this space is very, very important. There are couples that we meet, who are on the ball, they're on the money, and they're like, oh, it's a year out from when we're sort of planning our big day, which is roughly a good period. Being a year out from planning a wedding is relatively normal. So if you're a couple listening to this or a type A bride or groom who's going, oh, I'm probably too anal, you're really not, because a year out is pretty much standard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the most stress is usually the last 3 months, which leads on to our second point is you have to do things in advance. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't leave things to the last minute.
Yeah.
And if you're not planning ahead, you're already failing. And I think a great tip in order to do that is to also learn to delegate. Now, this could be into two sort of categories. You could delegate to your bridal party if you feel like they can take on shared responsibility. And maybe these can be small things that don't require a big sign off on your authority. It could just be small logistical things, right? Like getting the bouquet of flowers for the bridesmaids on the day. So maybe somebody else can get that, or having the groomsmen sort of do smaller items for the day as well. If you have bridesmaids and groomsmen, by the way, if you don't, then maybe your siblings and parents or something can help out, but not to take over the wedding, just to assist in smaller things.
Also, in addition to delegating tasks to your bridal party, I think it also really helps when you have a wedding planner, which is, once again, we are shooting in a South Asian market, and we're only seeing this from the last 1 or 2 years.
It's not really a common thing that we've come across in our early career. I think more so recently we've started to see.
Mind you, you've shot weddings in other countries where this is very common.
Yeah, so now we're talking about demographics and specifics here. So I think this varies from what type of wedding to also what country maybe the wedding is. Within the Southeast Asian market in Sydney, it's a bit of a newer emerging thing, and I think that the industry lags generally behind.
Western weddings, you see this all the time.
This is very normal within Western weddings. But what I mean by having a wedding planner is it allows you to take out time from the small nitty-gritty things to now just focus on other important areas. So when it comes to how do you balance your life around your upcoming wedding, having a wedding planner just means that you're basically going, hey, I'm going to talk to one person, and that one person is going to be responsible for me planning my entire wedding, and that person is also having conversations with 20 other people. So it narrows it all down to one person that you're in frequent communication with, which means now you can free up time to go and spend with your partner or your family, or just learn to actually enjoy yourselves leading up to your wedding. Because like you said, it's a stressful thing. If you're leaving it to the very last minute, you're going to be rushing. And when you rush, no one has a good time.
Yeah. And like, I'm actually getting this a lot now. A lot of wedding planners are contacting me to book in couples, right?
Yeah.
Which is not usually the case. I used to always have like brides or grooms contacting me, but I've been noticing this recently as well.
Yeah.
That we're getting a lot more emails from wedding planners, which is actually good.
It is good. Yeah. And I think also couples are realizing that, you know what, like I just don't want stress. Like,
and also I feel like, as you said, with the wedding planners, couples might think this is like a additional cost. Obviously, you have to hire a wedding planner, but that wedding planner might be able to negotiate a better rate for you from all different vendors, right? Yeah. That would pretty much mean that you're kind of breaking even. You're not really paying for the vendor at all.
Part of the job of a wedding planner, which I don't think a lot of couples realize, is that they're basically also there to negotiate on your behalf. They're there to analyze loops in contracts to go, we don't need this service. You can take this out. We don't have to pay for that. This can be removed from your venue, so you don't have to charge or pay for that. Like your wedding photographer is requesting this service if you want it, you don't have to take that. So they're there to do the nitty-gritty things, and that is an effective way of managing your time in a more efficient way. The same thing sort of applies in terms of not leaving your wedding planning to the last minute. The amount
of times I've walked into like a reception hall and I've just seen like a bride or groom sitting there writing the speech like last minute. It's just crazy. And like in that, like you can see they're like actually stressed out. It's on their face.
You've not planned your time effectively, which means that on the day your photos aren't going to be great because you're stressed out.
And look, and I get it. Like last 1 or 2 months of each wedding is a very stressful time because
ramps
like
up. It just
especially
ramps up.
for the kind of weddings we shoot, bro. There's like 5-6 different dance performances everyone's in. They're like 20 people to organize every week in, week out. You got to like get everyone into one place to practice all that, right? So it's understandable that you kind of run out of time to do a lot of these other things like writing your speech and that kind of stuff. But
I also think a lot of brides naturally take the driver's seat when planning the wedding, and that's fine. Like you know what you want. I think more women are typically a bit more
should,
organized.
right? It's your wedding.
You should, but
Yeah.
This is where I think, and maybe this part, if we make it into a reel, brides are going to send this part to their grooms. I can just see it happening. But this is the part where I think a little bit more grooms should be a bit more involved. And what I mean by that is not saying, oh yeah, babe, like
whatever you want, do whatever you want.
Like, Habibi, like I love you, like I just want you to take care of every. You know what I mean? Like not all that stuff. I think grooms should go, hey, like this is our experience together.
Yeah,
let's just.
What can I do to make it a bit more easier for you?
And I'm not saying you have to have the same level of involvement, but just show enough that it shows the partner that you care. And I think a lot of the time grooms just...
I guarantee you there's so many brides out there that are like thinking right now, fuck if only this happened with me.
What? They'll literally be like, oi, like listen to these guys. Like, babe, I love you, but like,
honestly, like the amount of times you rock up and like the groom has like no clue
what's
about
going on.
anything. He's like, just ask the bride, I have no idea. She planned everything, right?
Which is why so many brides stress out, because they're wearing all these hats, and they're going, I'm the only person responsible. Like, yes, like, babe, it is your day. 100% I agree with you, but you can delegate and your partner should share equal responsibility. Like, if you have a trustworthy sibling who knows your shit, give them like some stuff to manage.
Mind you, this doesn't have to be obviously the bridal party, because a lot of weddings,
not.
A lot of weddings don't have bridal parties, right? So you need to be able to delegate to your siblings, your parents even.
If they can manage and support, for sure. Sometimes I think there's a fine line to this.
If they can manage to keep their business out of your business.
That's what I'm saying.
I have been to a lot of weddings where
there's a fine line to this, because
you
you want to make sure that you can get support from your parents and your future in-laws, but if they go over the edge or they cross that line, then it becomes a problem.
Mind you, a story comes to mind, and this is probably not like directly related to what we're talking about. It's kind of similar, about like a parent and a bride. I shot a wedding once where it's a mandap happening, like a Hindu wedding or whatever, and they finished the wedding, and the bride had an argument. And when I say argument, like she was crying, right? with her mother-in-law.
Oh no.
Because the mother-in-law wanted to like control everything that happens, right? And legit, the mother-in-law goes to the bride, you're not allowed to go to your post-wedding shoot. Because apparently it was some religious reason or whatever it was, right, bro? They full like, they got out of the mandap. You can see like they went a little bit to the back. They were just having a full-on argument with each other. The bride comes back. She's just like crying, pouring her eyes.
Not
I was
crying
like,
out of happiness.
I was like, poor thing. Yeah, this is not what happiness crying.
Pissed.
Yeah. So obviously, like, be mindful who you delegate your shit to.
Yeah. Tying this back into what we started speaking about, that is absolutely spot on. Like, delegate to people, and I think I'm just going to caveat by saying this: delegate to people who you know you can
who
trust.
have the best interest in their heart, like who have your best interest in heart.
Correct.
And mind you, sometimes parents do have a best interest in the heart, but they just don't know the execution. Yeah.
So that are kind of like the biggest things that I would sort of suggest for a couple who are looking at a space of going, you know what, we've got a year out. We're going to be proactive. We might invest into a wedding planner. We could delegate some of these roles to our bridal party if we have one, or to siblings or to parents that we can trust. And that's kind of a good summary way of how to sort of maintain a balanced lifestyle whilst planning a wedding.
Also a year out thing, right? How many times have you had couples contact you like 4 months before their wedding to book you in?
If you've contacted me 4 months out from your wedding date to go, oh, hey, Kartik, we're so excited. We'd love your photography. We'd really love you to capture our wedding this year in the next 4 to 6 months. You're doing something wrong.
And honestly, like 9 out of the 10 times, you're already booked out.
And I can understand if maybe this is like an elopement style, which doesn't ever happen, or you never thought you needed the service, which I can understand. But just be aware of the fact that there are some vendors that are non-negotiable for you, like a photographer, a hair and makeup artist, a DJ, a videographer. These guys require like
10. Like I personally got booked out like 10 to 12 months in advance all the time, right? And I understand you might be in a situation where you only decided, oh, we need to get married, and you put a wedding like 6 months from now, which is fine. Like it happens, right? Some, like a lot of couples only decide they want to get married, and they're like, oh, let's not wait like a year and let's just get married in 6 months. Yep. Totally fine. Yep. But maybe to avoid, like if you do still want to get your preferred vendors, then you might want to go for like a weekday wedding. Because obviously like weekdays, we won't be more available like 4 to 6 months in advance. Weekends, bro, get booked out like, 10, 12 months easily. Like,
maybe this is a off-topic conversation, but just it still does relate. Like being proactive also means reaching out to your vendors or preferred vendors a lot more in advance than just less than 6 months. I don't recommend that at all. So try and have a conversation around that a little bit more early.
And send us your run sheets at least a week or two before.
Please.
Like a lot of times I'm asking like on the last day, like a day before the wedding, hey, can I get your run sheet? Like I need to know what's actually happening on the wedding day. And people
don't realize
very
how
stressful
important that stuff is, and how leaving it to the last minute is just a big problem.
Just in general, just stay on top of things by doing everything much in advance. That literally means that you have lower stress levels.
Yeah, correct.
And you can spend more time with your family as well.
Beyond that, like those are the main things. So let's now shift our gears a little bit towards photographers. So photographers who are listening in who have just started a business, or maybe you're established in your business, or videographers as well.
Or you're struggling with having you could be established, but you're struggling with having like a good balance with your work life and your home life.
Correct. By the way, like this source, again, like maybe you actually have a system that manages your life, but you might be aware of the fact that there are months of the year that goes out the window because it is just that busy. But we had fresh perspectives here because Manav's married. I'm single Pringle, but I think we both have our unique ways of managing our personal life with our respective businesses. And there's one thing that you always tell me that you can do as a photographer in order to balance your lifestyle. I just want you to share with the audience what that actually is.
I think the number one tip I can say is learn to say no. When you're a new business starting out, it's very hard to say no, and it's understandably because you're trying to make a profit, like you're trying to take on any work
Money
as you can.
Is good,
right? Because you just got to start out. And maybe this tip applies like to if you're already established, but you need to learn to say no if you want to have a good work-life balance. You might come across a booking that, hey, this sounds amazing. Like, this, really friendly couple that you get along with. It's an amazing venue. You can already picture like how the photos are going to look, and that excites you, right? And the money is great, right? But you've already got like 3 or 4 weddings that you've taken during that month, right? And now you're going to be overloading yourself if you take this wedding as well. So you need to be able to learn to say no. Like, I need to cut myself off at a certain number of bookings per month or per year, and you have to stick to that. And you need to be okay with losing out on money or losing out on clients.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the biggest thing that right now I'm thinking of is just one word, is self-awareness, right? Like, mind you, all of these points that we'll refer to.
I feel like it always just comes back to self-awareness.
Like in everything in life, not just photography, just life in general, self-awareness. But you need to have self-awareness to, number one, assess where you're currently at with life. And this is kind of an overarching theme amongst all of the points that Manav and I will go through. But what I mean by that is, ask yourself the heavy questions. Number one, what does my life actually look like when I'm super busy versus what does it look like when I'm not super busy? Ask yourself questions about what are the things that actually make me happier in life, right? And yeah, that's a deep meta question, and this is sort of stemming beyond just the podcast, but it's super, super true and super important. Ask yourself, what are my financial goals for the year? Am I doing this because right now I'm working towards a particular goal or lifestyle for my later years? Okay, so then what does it mean that I take on this year now in order to make my future goals successful?
As much as you may think, hey, what makes you happy is money, right? And especially this is more true for like single people that are like, young or whatever. At the end of the day, bro, like family, like I think the most important thing in your life is your family.
Your family,
right?
yeah. And I completely side and agree with you, which we'll go into detail in a little bit more. But the biggest thing that I've sort of realized, and I think you've shared this with me in the past, is you need to treat your business like a 9 to 5. Now,
especially editing.
Correct. The funny thing this reminds me of a quote, and I know you've heard this before. It's like, I left my 9 to 5 to work 24/7. When I first heard that quote, I was like, fuck, what a boss. Like, that's sick. But now having...
And then you start doing it.
Like, now having matured up a little bit, I'm like, no. Sometimes I actually envy the whole 9 to 5 circumstance because they have a very defined work life balance and work period. Maybe you can elaborate on your, like, treating that sort of 9 to 5 within your editing. Like, how does that work for you?
If you really think about it, we don't really switch off ever.
That's true.
Other than maybe when we're sleeping, and maybe even then we're dreaming about something business related.
Like, I can kid you not, I've had dreams of wedding photography before. It's weird.
You know what? You know the weirdest dreams I've had that I've missed weddings because I've slept in. That's my worst fear.
That's when you know your work is too much in your life.
Anyone listening watch this, I put 3 alarms on.
You're messed up.
I put 3 alarms on a wedding morning.
Proper.
One on my phone, right? And 2 of them are like analog.
That's
just
so
standalone
funny.
ones.
That's
so
so
I don't
funny.
want to take a chance that if my phone like
just cocks it in the morning.
Cocks in the morning or like some sort of like
Something
a digital
happens.
thing happens.
Yeah,
With, you know,
yeah.
I want to have like an analog thing that wakes me up at the same time as a digital thing. So once again, going back to the thing that we're literally thinking about this 24/7 when you're in a business, right?
And that's when you know there's a problem. That's when you know I want to sort of caveat here because I love that you love something that much that it consumes you. But even the word consumes you has a connotation of, hey, this might be a bit unhealthy to an extent. And you know, we both have our own respective lives. You as a married person, me as a single person. And I know that it has consumed me more in the past recently than anything because you get so overwhelmed. So how do you do it when it comes to your editing? Like, you have again morning to evening hours and then you edit within that period?
Just before I speak about this, obviously when I started my business, I was single. So I can 100% relate to what you're saying. When you're single, you have so much time on your hands, right? You can literally work like 12 hours, 15 hours a day. And because this is the only thing that drives you, you don't really feel like you're working, right? It's like a passion, right? You want to you start off like that.
Correct.
But as I've gotten married and into that phase of my life, I've realized that it's very important to give time to your family, especially your wife. And
so your wife's within the wedding photography industry?
No. She's 95.
As a corporate
so she literally switches off at a certain time, and when she's home, she's not thinking about work, right?
The last thing, I'm not married by any means, but the last thing I would imagine is your partner comes home and she finds her husband
just still sitting on a laptop
still sitting in the same spot that she left him in the morning when she said, all right, bye honey, I'll see you later. She comes back, she's like, oh, you're still here.
And then he's there till like 11 o'clock at night, which I've done. Right. 2 times when it's been like hardcore editing. Like, obviously there's like a certain months of the year where we like packed out, whatever. I've done that in the past, and I felt really bad
What
about
does
it.
that do? Like, I mean,
But-
does that frustrate your partner in that relationship?
Yeah, bro, 100%. You should ask my wife.
Shout out to Mana's wife. Mana really loves you, and he doesn't mean it, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm still trying to I'm still trying to do better, but
work in progress.
But back to the point we were talking about, what one thing has helped definitely is treat your editing like a 9 to 5, which means, first of all, don't waste time. Like, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Half the time you're just sitting on your computer watching YouTube videos or something, right? Like random shit. Wake up in the morning, like, and mind you, it's so hard when you're your own boss to be efficient with time. And you have to tell yourself when you wake up, like, you know, go gym or whatever you're going to do. And then when you come back, you have to just lock into work.
Yeah, correct.
Because think about it, especially if you're married, your partner's out there doing work right now.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Correct.
So treat your editing like it's 9 to 5. Start editing at, like, you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be like 9. You can start at 10 and finish at 4, whatever the time is that works for you. But after a certain time during the day, switch off your editing, right? And try to spend time with your family and friends, with your wife. And mind you, I'm still struggling with this at times.
Yeah.
And I sometimes still work in the evening. So it's not like I'm doing this myself, but I am telling myself constantly every day, just make sure you just switch off at a certain time so you can spend time with
I
your
would
wife.
imagine it'd be things like, you know, doing date nights and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, babe, like, you know, it's been a while since we've
And
gone
mind
out.
you, date nights don't mean like you just go to a date night and then you talk to her again about your wedding photography business or whatever, right? Like,
you don't do that.
yeah. Date nights mean like actually just switch off and just spend time
Like
with
connect with your partner.
Yeah,
Ask
connect
how
with your
things-
partner.
not related to your current job.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fall into that trap where they're like, they'll take a break, quote unquote, but the break is still about work. And forget photography, forget weddings. Like, if your break and you're still talking about a job in that time, and I get it could be funny or maybe whatnot, but you should have those things that have nothing to do with what your career is, right? So I would imagine, you know, you and your partner would go out, or maybe you'd have a movie night at home sometimes and just switch off, which is kind of what you need, right?
What do you do? Because I want to ask you, as a person who's, you know, not married, like as a single person, what do you do from day to day running your business that would help you achieve like a balance?
See, it's really interesting because
mind you, one of these things we do together.
yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So I'll break it down. But before I do that, we talked about this a lot off camera about falling in love with what you do, right? Falling in love with the process. Yeah. And I think there's a double-sided, it's like a double-edged sword with that, because technically speaking, if I look at my day to day, I could argue easily 3/4 of my day is all work. Now, one could say, is that balance? The question is realistically, no. But you're missing the point about, well, I actually love what I do so much that it doesn't really feel like work. But again, it's still very important to, again, have self-awareness to go, hey, I've tipped the scales too much on the work side and I've been neglecting my me side or my family side. Let me just bring that balance back. But to answer your question, the first thing that I do in the morning, which I think we've been doing a lot together, is just going to the gym.
Yeah.
And
just wake up first thing, bro. And how much does it help, right?
Bruh.
Just gives, not even, like, forget about like the physical benefits you get of just going to gym, like the mental clarity that you get. Or just like you spend an hour in the gym, you come back, you're like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to work.
It's great because now, when we go to the gym, like, there's an overlap sometimes with wedding photography or with work, but then the other times we just talk shit. We talk about obviously fitness and lifting and stuff. But my aim isn't so much to build a body per se, but it's a good byproduct. My aim is to go,
there's like a truck in the back that's fucking going full retard right now. Hopefully that's not coming through the audio, but we'll
just start that part again.
No, just keep going. It's fine.
My aim at this point is going, hey, you know what? I'm here to work out, but my mental game is what I'm trying to develop here. Like, how do I refresh my mind? So when I wake up in the morning, I'm usually like going to the gym first thing. Then I'll come back and I'll get into like maybe the hardest part of my business first, because I know that takes the most brain power. And sometimes it's just going literally like, I need to start planning content. I need to create content. I need to edit content. Right? Or admin, right? Like heavy stuff that's just like, it's boring, but you just got to do it.
Because realistically, when you think of being a wedding photographer, you didn't really sign up to be a photographer because you want to be an admin.
Correct.
If you want to be an admin, you just go and get an admin job, right?
Legit. You're legit.
And it's something that you don't really think about when starting a wedding photography business, that there's like 10 other things that you got to do, which are like boring as and require a lot of like same thing again and again and again.
And there's so much of our days that revolve around things that aren't related to wedding photography. But to answer your question, I'll basically spend majority of the day behind a desk, right? And I'll probably remind myself, shit, it's 2:00. I've not eaten lunch yet. I got to eat. Then I go back to it.
So you got away from 9 to 5 to sit behind a desk at home.
Legit. And then I'll have dinner at some point.
Yeah.
And then I'll keep editing into the nighttime. Now, in that point in time, I can argue that yes, my balance is thrown off. But I love it that much that it doesn't feel that way. And I think for me, I have to have a constant reminder to go, hey, I've not had any me time today. That's got nothing to do with couples or weddings or anything like that. You know what I mean? And that's a part that I have to just keep reminding myself to go, okay, cool. How do I bring normality back into this?
Yeah. Also, I think you told me about you have a book that you've been reading as well about feel good productivity. What was that?
Yeah. So right now there's a part in my schedule where I'll try and pick the most basic, boring part of my day that I can make the most entertaining
book
with.
suggests
So
you to
Feel
do.
Good Productivity, for those of you who haven't stumbled across the book, is basically a book written by Ali Abdaal. He's a YouTuber. It was a doctor turned into a full-time YouTuber now. Incredible entrepreneur. And he talks about how you can make productivity fun. And that was such a great concept when I first came across it, because I can automatically say, as a wedding photographer, and even for you too, that there are parts in our business we don't like. And sometimes I actually don't mind it, but other photographers go, the editing process I hate, but they got to do it. So in his book, he talks about habit stacking or doing things together to make a bit more of a mundane task a bit more interesting. So his example that he gave in the book was he would do his hospital admin as a doctor, but he would listen to a 3-hour soundtrack by Lord of the Rings. And I thought that was really wonderful.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would do my wedding photography editing, and I'm like, okay, cool, got to do this now. I don't mind it, but it's a bit mundane sometimes. And I would put on either a really informative podcast, shout out to the Cameraman Show, I think they do all right, or I would watch Netflix in the background, or put on an informative YouTube video.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel like I'm listening to something, taking an education, but also gives me some sort of balance to go, something that I once thought was a big daunting task is now actually a bit more enjoyable. And that's
I think I do that a lot as well, especially when I'm editing photos. Now, obviously, if I'm video editing, I can't put a podcast on in the background because I actually have to listen to the audio of the video that I'm editing. But especially when I'm editing photos, I put it and I'm big into comedy podcasts and stuff, right? Shout out JR, eats him doing. I think that I find that really helpful. If I'm just sitting down, and I know I'm going to be sitting down for 4 hours just editing wedding photos, just put on a podcast in the back.
The other part that I think can relate to this area of our business, and I think it's also contextual depending on where you're at financially, how far your business is down the line, but you can start delegating as well. We speak about bride and grooms delegating, about their wedding. Photographers and videographers can also delegate. And what I mean by that is potentially hiring on a VA or a personal assistant or even an editor. You have people in your business that help you out. Is that right?
Yeah. So obviously, because I do photo and video both compared to you, I do have a bigger team, which is,
required. Yeah.
Required. I do have one of the team members in my team who helps me with editing. And obviously, if you're starting out, obviously you're going to do everything yourself. But if you're into the thicker things where you're into the mature part of your business where you're getting inquiries coming through constantly, you're taking on multiple weddings a month, there's no way you can keep on top of everything while just trying to edit everything yourself.
So
and mind
difficult.
you, that also means that you have to train the editor in a certain way because obviously you have a vision that you want to keep that right. But definitely, I think having an editor helps 100%.
Maybe you're at the infancy of your business where you just haven't earned enough, but there could be other things. Maybe you might have a partner who wouldn't mind answering some of your emails, right? I'm not saying get your partners involved in the business, no, but if there are ways in which you can take out some of the boring aspects of your job where someone else can replace you in that front, do it.
Or if you have a partner who's just had a kid or something and then she just has to stay home for I'm not saying looking after kids is not a full-time job in its own, but they might be able to help you just do the admin side of things.
Yeah, correct. Right? I know a few photographers within the space who have involved.
They have their wives that help them out with admin.
I recently got exposed to this idea of work-life harmony as opposed to work-life balance, and it was a very interesting take on it. But it kind of revolves around not demonizing the fact that your work is impeding in your life and having a balanced sort of scenario, but using it to go, this is our life. How do we best make the most from what we have? And some people will try and segregate. What we're kind of talking about this podcast going, this is our time for defined work. This is our time for defined me and you time. Adding to that, sometimes what I would do, is I would take my laptop and I would go to a cafe. And I would
I know that you do this all the time.
I do it all.
Yeah,
You'd call me up randomly and be
Yeah.
like, where are you at?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I'm at a cafe.
Leaf Cafe, shout out.
Shout out to Leaf Cafe Co. Amazing staff and food there.
Yeah.
But I would literally take out my laptop,
You do a lot of editing just sitting around there as well. Yeah.
Or I might call up one of my mates and be like, hey, I miss you. Let's do a work with day.
Yeah.
Now, one could look at that and go, oh, but you're not really spending quality time. True. It's not time dedicated to just that person. But I always go, hey, look, let's go out and smash out some work. Let's be really productive. But then afterwards, just hang. And I get to do a busy day in the company of people that I care and love. And I feel like I'm having a productive session, but I'm also showing that person that, hey, I could have done this at home. You could have done this at home. But instead, I choose to be here because we want to spend time with each other.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that helps me a lot is like, you know how we talk about like going to gym and everything, like, but I feel like even while we're in the gym, yes, it has like, you know, mental benefits that you feel more clarity and all that later on. But one thing I notice a lot of times is while I'm working out, I'm still thinking about something to do with my business. But one thing that I do personally where this is not true is like I play badminton sometimes, right? In the evenings. And if you're playing some sort of a sport, it could be like indoor soccer, badminton, it could be anything. You literally have no time to think about your business because you literally need 100% of your mind.
You're focused there.
You have to, and that I feel like that helps a lot because it literally helps you like just switch off fully 100%.
Yeah, correct. And I think
way more than like going to gym or whatever.
100%. Like my equivalent to sport is actually I dance. So and I've been dancing well before I was a photographer, and it's weird because I completely forget in the 1 to 2 hours that I'm there that I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
And I'm not, there's very few activities in my life that can make me feel that way. When I'm gaming with you or I'm just playing video games, I maybe have a thought that crosses my mind, oh, I got to send that email to that client. I'll be like, oh, that gallery's done, got to send that off. But when I'm at dance, I'm purely there.
Don't talk about gaming, bro. Like I feel like I haven't even done that. It's like so long.
It's been so bad. It's been so bad.
Mind you, both of us, we love video games, right?
Yeah.
And we used to play a lot together and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just feel like every time I play a video game now, I just feel guilty.
You do this a lot. You do this a lot, and I've
yeah.
realized this because I know how hard you work, and I need you to cut yourself some slack because I know how hard you work. But then you tell me, be like, oh, bro, like I've just gamed for like 3.5 hours. I feel so fucking shit. And I'm like, oh, bro, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like don't worry.
And mind you, if let's say if I like, you know, do like an 8-hour, 10-hour editing day and then I'll game after that for a little bit, like I feel all right?
Yeah.
But if I'm just doing it, I haven't done anything the whole day, I just feel so shit. I'm like, what am I doing? Just sitting here wasting time.
I know this conversation is a bit more meta than what it needs to be, but I think just generally in life, I think a lot of people come down really hard on themselves. And it's okay if you've not done the work yet and you reward yourself. Honestly, I'm not one of those advocates who are like, work, and then go and play hard just as much. Like, bro, you can play hard even if you didn't do the work. And I'm not saying that should be done all the time. So, you know, to each their own, self-awareness here. But I think we should have conversations where we're not demonizing how much we're doing or not doing. I think we go, hey, there are moments in my day where I work hard. There are some moments in my day where sometimes I don't work hard. And that's absolutely okay.
Which goes back to what I believe in the most is enjoying the process and not worrying too much about the destination, but enjoy the process, right? Now, I have to tell this to myself sometimes when I feel guilty about like, you know, playing a game or whatever. I'm like, as much as like I love doing what I'm doing, which is like, you know, photography, wedding photography, everything like that, you need to be able to enjoy that. And sometimes the best way to enjoy it is just take a break where you're not doing anything related to your work. And that helps you enjoy the process in the long run because you're like, at least like, you know, like after a while, burnout is a real thing.
Yeah, for sure.
If you just keep doing the same thing again,
we could literally dedicate a separate segment to burnout, to burnout as wedding photographers, because I know there are a lot of people tuning into this who are photographers who are going, bro, burnout is so real.
I bet there's a bunch of photographers tuning into this who have like a 6-month catalog, backlog or something, right?
It's bad.
And it's bad. Like once you're on top, if you're not on top of things and you have like 30 weddings that you need to edit, like you just become so burnt out. You just
But I love what you said about, you know, falling in love with the process, because case in point, right? Like, you know, we just started this podcast channel, this YouTube channel as well. We've brainstormed so many ideas in a short period of time. And bro, I love it. Like I legit get more excited about the fact that we've only got 17 subscribers rather than running our businesses.
34 at the time of this recording, but
is it actually? 34 at the time of this recording.
Maybe doubled from
maybe 36 or something. Like,
by the time this comes out, hopefully it's a few thousand.
There are a few people watching this who watch it and don't subscribe.
90% of the people that watch us on YouTube, they don't subscribe. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. No, keep doing it. Keep doing it. But just subscribe as well.
Just subscribe. Yeah. Keep watching, but just subscribe. But learn to fall in love with the process is probably one of the biggest tips I could have probably heard and also give to anyone when we start talking about work-life balance, work-life harmony. Like if first of all, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you need to have a big conversation with yourself and figure out why that is the case. And I'm not speaking just as a wedding photographer. If you're a 9 to 5, if you're in any sort of career that you're just not really loving, that you're not passionate about waking up in the morning and going to, you might need to address that part first before we get to the, hey, how do we balance our life part? Because if you're not ultimately enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't really matter what techniques we're going to give you about time blocking and treating it like a 9 to 5 and, to picking up your laptop and going to a cafe. Yeah. None of it means anything if you're not happy about what you're actually doing for a career.
Also CRMs.
Efficiencies.
Like for photographers, like now if you're talking about how to make your work-life balance as a photographer, right? Bro, I was like sending out like printed contracts, right? And I think did we talk about this on another pod?
No, I don't think we did. Shout out to every printer out there and any photographer who had a printer.
Basically, like before getting a CRM, for those of you who don't know what a CRM is, it's like a client relationship management. I think it's or customer relationship, whatever it's called. It's basically like an online software where you can link it with your website, right? And it will capture all the information, like their name, details, whatever, and it helps you reply to them.
Yeah.
Right? Also, you can send out like digital contracts, you can send out invoices, like basically all the admin stuff that's related to being a photographer is now handled by this one software, right?
Because what does that make you feel when you know that you've gotten into a space where like that's all just taken care of?
Yeah.
Like you feel a bit more peace.
Bro, like now, like my booking process for a wedding takes like 5 minutes. Compared to before, I was sending like a contract in Microsoft Word, right?
Shout out to Microsoft Word.
Sending that, and then the couples would like sign it, send it back. There was like a long process of that, right?
Yeah.
Which is like annoying us. But now it just like having a CRM basically just frees up so much time as a photographer, where you're able to do all the admin side of things much quicker.
Yeah. I think when you understand your inefficiencies within your business, or just day-to-day life as a human being who doesn't even have a business, maybe you just want to figure out how to be a bit more practical with your day, invest in things that could just potentially help quiet the noise. And when we got CRMs, I think we got it roughly at the same time for Studio Ninja. Shout out to them. But I remember when we incorporated that within our business, I had more time. Because
now I can't go back.
Yeah, I can't.
It's one of those things which I thought like, oh, do I really need it? Like I was just like writing down stuff on my notes or whatever before, right? And then once you get it, like how many, like bro, I'm literally on it every day checking, like, hey, I've got to like what's coming up, what I have to do, which client has signed a contract, who hasn't, who I need to follow up with, everything like that.
And these are things that my brain just I cannot give brain power to anymore because something else is now replacing that and is doing the hard thinking for me. So
and it frees up more time for you to be creative.
Yeah, I can now focus on more important things of my day than worrying about, where am I at with my pipeline of clients and leads?
Yeah.
And so, the biggest thing that just helps with balances and within your life is put in place systems and processes that I think just streamlines everything. It's no different.
Try to automate as much as you can.
It's no different from people having a calendar. It's a very simple thing like that. Like just have a calendar where you know that this is what's going on in the back end of my business. This in turn will then mean that I have to do X, Y, Z and X, Y, Z and this and this and this. And therefore, once that's all done, now I can figure out, cool, I can actually give my weekend back to myself. Because we don't have weekends as photographers. We have working days as photographers.
Forget about that, bro.
Yeah. What's a weekend?
What's a weekend?
What's casual leave? What's annual leave? What's sick leave? We don't have any of that shit, right? And even when we aren't shooting, Monday to Friday, we're editing. Or we're replying to emails, or we're doing contract calls.
And mind you, like, for example, like my wife is 9 to 5, so she always has the weekends off, right? So especially like if you're a photographer who's married, who's got a partner, or who even has a girlfriend that does like, 9 to 5, whatever, it can become quite challenging.
I remember to that point, I was on the app Swipey, and I remember that I had people asking me, so what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm a wedding photographer. They go, I don't think this would be a good idea. And I said, why? She goes, well, I'm a doctor and I'm heavily out Monday to Friday. I just don't know how we would see each other or make time for each other.
Makes sense.
And I totally understand that, but I completely get that there are some careers that make it difficult to to pair with, right? And I can understand, right? Well, I mean, I can see your position at the moment being a full-time wedding photographer, videographer, then having a wife who works in corporate. And it is such an important part of balancing, you know, that scale, right? Because too much in one direction, shit goes down. And then it's like, babe, you're not spending enough time with me. Like, oh my God. You're always out with that other photographer.
Are you sure you're not married? It sounds like you already know what's up.
I feel like I just can preemptively see the conversation.
You live vicariously through all your mates who are married.
Legit. And I'm like, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem. This is going to be. I don't know. This is what I'm going to be walking myself into. Which is why I think it was so important for us to make this episode, because you might be a photographer who just stumbled across this episode, which I hope if you did, then you found some value.
Some sort of value.
Yeah. But you might be at a point in your life where right now you might be okay. You could be single like myself, or maybe you have a system that works for you and your partner, but maybe we're only talking about this now and you're okay with it now because it's off peak and it's going to go into peak season. And when it goes through peak season, it's like you can't forget that, hey, I've got to water the plants in our relationship, metaphorically speaking. I've got to take out time for my partner. I've got to do the things that I still used to do. And this is why we wanted to create this.
And mind you, like you might be someone in corporate right now who's thinking of quitting their corporate job and going into this, right? So hopefully this episode's helped you in understanding all the challenges that you could be facing if you do come into this. Obviously not discouraging you to do this. Like obviously this has its upsides as well, right? But there are a lot of, 100% there's a lot of challenges.
The other part that I think I would just sort of use to sum up the end of this podcast episode that I once heard, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. If we could just sort of bring it all down to one thing right now, I think there's this quote that comes to mind, and I for some reason it has resonated with me. But everyone should have something that has nothing to do with what they're currently doing. And what I mean by that is, if wedding photography are our lives, which is our entire career, we have to have things that bring normality back into that balance. And badminton, dance, gym, relationships,
and it might even be like meditation for some people.
Meditation, spirituality is a big one,
whatever
right?
it is,
whatever works for you works, right? But
and obviously not the same thing's going to work for everyone. Like you just got to find what works for you.
Yeah, and I think just, you know, we talk about the overarching theme, self-awareness, right? Have self-awareness. Ask yourself these questions like, have I spent out of a 7-day week any of it for my friends? Have I spent any of it for my family? Have I gone out and done something for myself? There was a book called The Artist's Way, shout out to that book, where literally the author speaks about taking yourself out for a creative date. And it sounds a bit odd and weird, but in that date, you take yourself out to find new strokes of inspiration. And you could go to a park, you could go to a theater on your own, you could go shopping, you could literally sit in somebody else's home and just work there or treat yourself in that sort of manner. But it's such an important time to just take out for yourself, to really gather these moments where you can just, you know, seek inspiration. And I think a lot of people don't often do that. Hence why, you know, I've gone to the cafes and you called me like, where you at? And this is what I'm doing.
I think
now.
you definitely read more books than me. I think I need to start reading more.
No, you got into Goggins once.
Oh yeah,
How'd that go?
I've read like 30 pages. It's just been lying around.
maybe think about that.
I got to go back to that.
Think about that. If you guys liked this video, then make sure to hit that like button. Comment what was your best part that you resonated with. If you're a photographer who has some tips that you feel other photographers could probably benefit from, type it in the comment section below. Or
I think we might even do just like a whole pod episode where we just read comments.
Or email us at thecameramanshow@gmail.com. And if you guys liked what you heard today or watched, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us on what podcast platforms do we have? So we've got Spotify,
we got Apple. If you can rate us there, don't give us 1-star ratings. That'll piss us off. I bet you imagine like someone just goes just to troll us. Leave like 1 star. Yeah.
And if you guys have enjoyed this episode, we'll catch you in
the next one.
All right.
Peace.